But putting it into a language, like, because in my past, I've been in opportunities where I've needed to speak in front of large audiences.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of drawing back on some of that now, because in that whole exercise, it's not even dealing with the size of the audience. It's about how to convey your message that the general audience is going to understand.
For sure.
Not using too big of words, and being on the level with average people. I mean, because
Yeah,
as
I
the way I
struggle with
approach
that
it,
actually. I am a big word nerd. So
me too. Me
so
too.
I often have to like go back and read something and I'm like, you probably should have said that more simply. And like
Right.
I was taught a long time ago is when you're trying to convey a new message to somebody, one, you always think of it like they don't have any clue what you're talking about and you're teaching them for the first time. And then two, talk to them like they're on a sixth grade level. And because the average American reads and speaks on a sixth grade level. Isn't that gnarly? But
That's
they,
terrible.
yeah,
It's terrible.
but that's the truth. So it's like not condescending, but talk to them like you would talk to basically your 12-year-old child.
Right. That's
So if you
kind of
wouldn't
how I
use,
had to arrange it too.
yeah,
Same way. Same way. I had to like kind of dumb it down to be a little unpolitically correct, I suppose. But
yep.
you know,
Yep. And it's another thing that, sometimes I think when we think of people who are investors, you expect them to maybe like know more than you or be smarter than you. And that's not true. Just because they got money does not mean they have intelligence, business acumen, know anything about your industry or your product. Like you are the expert when you take the floor. And you have to assume that you really do. Like just because they have money doesn't mean they have anything else sometimes to bring to the table. And it's important to speak to people just like that. I mean, because I'm a big word nerd, and I have to find myself like I'm like, okay, I didn't have to say that word. I could have found a different a different word. Because
yeah, agreed.
because what
Agreed.
people do, I mean, especially because like you're trying to get people to give you money. So most people, we know this from childhood, they don't raise their hand and say I don't know or I don't understand. So that means it just went over their head or they glossed over it, and you're missing telling them this important stuff. So they give you their money. So it's like whatever you got to do to make it plain and simple. That whole keep it simple stupid, like just keep it simple. So yeah, I feel you. It's crazy. Well, I am recording. We're already recording. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Welcome to this week's version of your live session. This is your time to ask any questions that you want to ask. You can hit me. Also, just a quick reminder to anybody who's here, anybody who's watching the replay, that if you want to pitch your pitch deck, which is what we were just talking about, live to the class for student and instructor feedback, and you want to do that before you turn in your assignment for a grade, you are welcome to do that here in a very safe place. Just let me know a day or two beforehand that you want to pitch your deck that upcoming live session. There's no stupid questions. Like nobody's gonna beat you up or jump on you. We're just here to help and offer feedback. So if just a quick reminder to the students that you have that opportunity, because that is your big assignment. I know everybody wants to do it well, and and if you've done it well enough, now going into the real world, you already have a deck. You can start pitching. You can start getting money from some investors. So it's you don't have to do that all over again. And to that point, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna ask. We have 2 more lives left remaining. Is that right? Okay, because I'm
here every week.
Like, I don't know. I don't want to miss a deadline and not have to work it on time. Like, I don't want to embarrass myself. If so, that ends on my birthday, by the way. Just FYI to everyone. Feel free to send weed.
On your birthday, we actually won't be here on your birthday for a live session because I will be out of town for my son's birthday.
Oh, that's right.
So there is no live session on May 19th.
Oh, see that I just got my birthday back. Okay, now I gotta find something else to do. I'm just kidding.
Oh, bless.
What you?
Were you
what
talking
did you
about
say,
the end of the course?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what, 2 weeks away?
Each student is different because you guys start on rolling enrollment. Okay. So
yeah, that was one of the things I was going to ask about. Like, how do I find out how much time I have left? Because I've been a little slacked on my pitch deck here because first I was afraid of it, like I said, and now I'm kind of rolling into it and I'm getting into the heavy parts of it where I'm really like, putting it out. I want to know where I'm at, like as far as how much time I have left. I think I got like at least 2 weeks, but I'm not.
I mean, Typically you can email, I forgot this guy's name. He's a new guy in admin.
Okay.
And you can ask him, or you can email me or text me, and then I can pull it up in Moodle and see like when you started and see like when your 8 weeks is over. But essentially, like I said, I host this class every week on Wednesday. And once you receive your certificate and you graduate, you just kind of stop getting the invitations to it. So I wouldn't be concerned about like how many more lives you have, because really until you're finished and you have your certificate in hand, I'll keep sending you the invitation to come. So no worries on that part. And if you ever are behind on like coursework, or you feel like your 8 weeks is coming to an end, it's as easy as to just shoot me an email and I can extend your date out in the system.
Okay, cool.
All right. So, well, I was going to ask, does anybody have any questions for us about the coursework this week? But I will follow that by saying, would it help you guys? I know I've done this before, but since we're kind of consistent on the subject of pitch decks, would you guys want me to go over mine again so that you can see? Because sometimes it helps when you're working on your pitch deck to see a real one, and then you can kind of get some ideas of what should be on a slide or what shouldn't be on a slide. Or just ask questions about some clarification. So if you guys want me to do that, I can do that, or the floor is just open for any of your questions for the coursework this week. So like, I guess the better question is anybody interested in going through a pitch deck live?
When I get mine done, I'll do it. Sure. I mean, I'm not.
No, mine. Like, are you guys interested in me showing you mine so that you have an example?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you want to see it. Trust me, yo.
I want to.
I'll just tell you, you want to see it.
I think I missed
because it's
that
a really
one.
good example.
Okay. Yeah, it's in the recorded ones. Like, so we went over it before.
Yeah. I've looked back at some of those, but
but it's
hard
cool.
for me to keep track of my comments when I'm watching a recording.
Yeah, I know.
Because then when I get to a live person, I'm like, oh shit! If I didn't take notes,
Take your notes.
I know. You should see my living room. It's covered with notebooks and sticky
oh my gosh,
pads.
me too. I have notebooks. It's kind of ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, bit here too. Yeah, agreed.
All right, let me share my screen with you guys. I would rather have this in front of me. Hold on one second. So I'm gonna move Zoom over here.
See, now are you working off your laptop?
Yes, but I have 2 screens because I'm an accountant and I can't work without 2 screens anymore.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah. So like I'm like addicted to it. I used to work with 3 screens. Like that is typically what an accountant would have. Like you'd have a wall of them, almost like a gamer.
Right.
So yeah, I'm used to that. So I have my laptop screen and then I have an external monitor connected to it.
I'm not used to any of this stuff.
Okay. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So we're just going to go through it very casually. But if you have any questions, just jump in or stop me or say stop there or whatever. So this is your title slide. So it should be very brief. You don't want a bunch of information, but you don't want it to just be like a picture, because you do want it to convey something. And ideally it's the name of whatever your company or brand is, and then what it does in like a very succinct statement. So for me, you see Pot and Pans, that's the brand. And then we're cannabis infused recipe kits. All right, see if my computer wants to cooperate. So then you want to go into your problem. Now your problem can be on one slide. It doesn't, mine goes over like 2 or 3 slides, just because a good note for when you're making a pitch deck is to be picture heavy, text light. Okay, because typically you will go through the presentations fairly quickly. Like if you were in competition, you're going to go super quick. But even if you're going to be like in an investor pitch room, you may have 10 or 15 minutes to actually get everything across. And people, you don't want to kind of be having to read from your slide or anything like that. So picture heavy, text light. And it can be all on one slide, or you can do them separately. So mine are going to be separate, and you'll see that. So the first problem from my company is saying that we're solving, and that's what the problem is. So I find that a lot of people confuse problem when I see their decks, they say stuff like the problem is that cannabis is illegal. Or they'll say the problem, what is it? Is it like everybody doesn't have a medical card or just something like that? Like something that doesn't have anything to do with your business, unless your business specifically somehow solves cannabis legalization in America, then that's not the problem that we're talking about. The problem is asking, what is the problem that you are going to seek to solve with your product or service? So our first problem is that cannabis measuring and calculating can be confusing, complicated, and difficult. That it's inconvenient to make cannabis at infused foods at home because it's time consuming. That it's intimidating to people who don't know what they're doing because they're afraid to mess up good weed. And that it's expensive to have cannabis infused meals. They're, other than making, you know, when you make them yourself, you have a couple options, right? So you can infuse at home, you know, on the stove. So then we talk about that time consuming aspect of it, or you can use a machine, but then that's the expensive aspect of it. And then you could completely skip that and use somebody like me who charges upward of $100 a plate for the meal. So it's very cost prohibitive to have an infused meal. It's kind of one of those bucket list things, what it's become, you know, fancy people do it. So then you want to go to your solution slide. So your solution, by and large, is like a glow up statement that really the answer to the solution should always just be whatever your company is. So although they're going to be specific, detailed solutions to the previous problems that you listed, you want to make a huge statement saying that the solution to this problem is clearly my company, right? Because we're going to fix it. So for our perspective, it's that pot and pans is going to be conveniently packaged. It's going to already be dosed and it's going to be affordable. And then the recipes are going to be easy to follow. And this just goes into them broken out. So the same thing, like I said, with the problems, it can all be on one slide. It does not have to be on multiple slides. It's just because I want to be image heavy and then text light that I spread out the explanations of my solutions onto separate slides, but you don't have to do that. So this is, so that was like a summary on that page that had just my my logo, and this is going to break them out specifically. So it's pre-dosed, it's convenient, and it's easy to use, and it is affordable. Okay, so then you want to get to your product slide. Now your product slide is literally, what do you sell? So it can, now sometimes, and this can also be interchangeable with a service. So even though your business may be service-based, the product, I mean, the slide is still called product. It's not called service. So for instance, if you were a catering service, then that would be your product. So you would find some image, but you know, even better if it's of you actually working a catering service, and then you would literally just state, you know, whatever your name, your company is. Green Beans, we are a catering company who infuses food and serves, you know, blah, blah, blah. So that's what you want to do. For my company, it's infused recipe starters. So these are pre-made, pre-packaged, pre-dosed sauces, and they are essentially chef level sauces. So not just your standard like Alfredo sauce or pizza sauce, which I've seen on the market actually. So, you know, ours are a little bit more chef heavy with mirepoix and sofritos and things like that to help people make their recipe at home. And then our product is, so, and when you say product, another thing I'll point out is like, what does the customer get? That's probably the easiest way to talk about product is what does the customer get? So in my case, if I really wanted to like not read my slides and just get to the point, the customer is going to get on a subscription based 2 to 3 recipe cards with the matching infused ingredient every 2 to 3, you know, for what a week or whatever. So your advantage. Now, some people get their advantage and their solution mixed up, or they start to repeat themselves. So your advantage is what makes you better than what already exists. Or you could speak to an advantage, the fact that something doesn't exist and you're going to make it exist by your having your product or service. So that's going to be really important. So it's really what makes you better. Why should the person give you their dollar instead of giving it to the person in the, you know, shop next door? So for my advantages, you can kind of see them here. Like I said, image heavy, text light. And then your business model. A lot of people I see get caught up really hard on business model. Business model just means, how do you make money? Like some people will start talking about, me and my best friend John, we're gonna be in the kitchen and we're gonna cut up 10 tomatoes. And it's like, what? Like, we're not asking for an operating statement about like how you're going to run the business, which could be in a larger, like longer form business plan, an operational statement of like how the day-to-day of something goes. But your business model slide is literally just answering the question, how do you make money? So everything is cute and you're solving problems, but dollars and cents, right? So, uh-oh, my screen just went to sleep. So, for us, we charge on a subscription basis. It's $30 to $60 per meal. And like, as we showed in the product slide, that you can have 2 to 3 meals per week in your subscription box. And then we also have an a la carte option for people who are not subscribed, but they do want to order from us, or they want to order a larger amount because they're having a dinner party. So we're calling it the dinner party option. That's priced at $20 per serving, but it must be 6 or more people that you're ordering from. We also have an Ecommerce Marketplace, which is basically just a website, and we're going to be selling, pot holders, cutting boards, wooden spoons, whatever you can think of that are kitchen essentials that have the Pot and Pans brand on it. Partnering with cannabis infused beverages, so those can be cannabis wines or just other cannabis beverages, to offer a value add to customers, so they can add that into their cart as well with their meal kits. And then a keepsake binder, because when you have meal kits, sometimes you get all these recipes every week that come like a recipe card in the mail, and then you have nowhere to really put them. So people kind of shove them in drawers and stuff. So you want to make sure that we're selling them somewhere to neatly put their cannabis recipes. And then finally, we do B2b licensing, which is a huge part of our revenue, because we are essentially going to sell the Pot and Pans brand name to other cannabis processors and retailers so that they can sell products under our name. So target demographic, this is a big one. And you'll see some of the slides I have on my deck, you may not see in the assignment description, because I think there's like 12 slides. Those are like the 12 slides there are the bare minimum, but you will see that I have like 24 slides because I really want to make sure that, investors understand what they're getting. So just if you feel like you're telling the story of your business and there are not enough slides, you can feel free to add more, but not less than the 12 that are in the assignment. So our target demographic, we actually did a survey. So it was very easy for us to pinpoint our target demographic. And it really is good for investors to know, really like narrow down who you want to sell to, not just like everybody. Please don't ever say everybody. We all want to sell to everybody, but no. So then you get into your market. And I've talked about this before. So a lot of people get very confused between market and target demographic. Those are not the same thing. Some people use the term target market and target demographic interchangeably. So then people get confused because you say, well, what's your target market? And they'll be like, women, ages, blah, blah, blah. And then when they ask you, well, what is your market or market size? And they're like, women, ages 21 to 30 or whatever. And it's like, no, the market is it's a monetary number. So like demographic is talking about people, like characteristics of a person, right? But market should always have a dollar sign with it. Okay, so when somebody asks you your market, they don't mean necessarily, oh, I sell my stuff in Wichita, Kansas. Well, that's great, but what does that mean in dollars? Like how many people in Wichita are buying what you're selling? So for my particular company, we fall into 2 kind of main categories. In terms of market, we're a meal kit delivery company. So we have to look at those, even though they're non-infused. That's part of our competition. So you have to like look up that market and see how much it's worth. So currently it's $10.26 billion industry in America. And then our more niche down market would be obviously cannabis. So then we're going to get into where we fit into cannabis edibles. And I've offered this before to some of the students to use any of the stats that you see that are like generalized stats, because these aren't things I made up. These are things I paid for. I paid BDS Analytics to get all of this information. So it's real and true as of 2021, 2020 through like 2022. and you're welcome to use it. It's just baseline information, so you can use it in your slides so that you know the information is correct. So if I hear people tell me something random, I'm like, well, you didn't do your research, because if I know anything, I have dug into the cannabis market. And so like if you sell like candy or something like that, if that's going to be part of your deck and you want to see that information, just shoot me an email and I can send you the pages if I have them that speak to what it is that you sell. But I'm in the infused food space. So I'm in non-candy, non-chocolate, or non-tincture, non-capsule. It's a bunch of layers to edibles. So, and this is a good one because a lot of people don't know what these things mean. So TAM, SAM, SOM. TAM, excuse me, means total, either attainable or addressable. It depends on the audience, whoever says it, kind of like tomato, but total attainable market. So that's like, what is the entire big picture of where your company fits? So for us, it is U.S. cannabis home cooks. And, you know, at first, when I first did my TAM, I thought like, well, yeah, like total available market is the $4.2 billion, right? Because that's all of cannabis edible sales in America. So it's like, yeah, we're edibles, we fit into that, that's the TAM. But a lot of investors really want you to dig into where you fit. They don't want to just hear like some big number, because honestly, they could have come up with that number by Googling it or paying a BDS analytics or something like that. They want to know like, how do you truly fit into that wider market? So the U.S. cannabis edibles market is poised to reach 4.2 billion by next year. But for us, we don't expect that every person who eats edibles will cook at home, right? So that goes into our own market research, and you can maybe, you know, find this information online somewhere, but we did our own research. So of the people who responded to our survey, of half of them, actually over half, like 51%, but like over half of them said they would absolutely buy, you know, subscribe to this service if it was available today. So then we just apply that to, you know, edibles consumers at large, right? So we just kind of do that 4.2 billion times 50% or 0.50. So then our TAM, we're saying that the market we play in has room for us, right? Because it's a $2.1 billion market. So then you go down a little bit more. So it's SAM. SAM stands for serviceable attainable market or available market. Serviceable, I would say that serviceable available market is your SAM. So that's just, so now we're really getting down there, right? Like this was like everybody who cooks, right? Who will cook cannabis, but you know, that's just, you know, part of it. So then we really niche down to infused foods. And we know this because we looked at the analytics that the huge market share in cannabis edibles is chocolate and candy. They fight back and forth for who gets one in spot 1 and spot 2, but typically around spot 3 is going to be infused foods. But infused foods, you know, also consist of basically anything savory, anything non-sweet, non-candy, but it does not consist of tinctures and capsules. That's a separate entity. And that's going to be 7% of total edible sales. So we got that $294 million number by literally just 4.2 billion times 7%. Actually, is that right? Yes, that's right. So then our SOM. So SOM stands for serviceable, obtainable market. So again, we're going, like, it should just constantly go down in this kind of direction, right? That yes, we play in the, you know, our serviceable available market of infused foods, right? Now we're playing in that more niche down market, but then what's obtainable? Like that's really what your investor wants to, like, okay, but you're likely not going to come out the gate making $294 million. So what part of that 294 really are you going to be focusing on? And that takes into account where you're located, takes into account that target demographic we talked about, like what percentage of that SAM really cares about what you're doing. So our serviceable, obtainable market for us is going to be the Michigan market. That's our launch market in cannabis. And they did about almost $10 million in infused foods sales. So it's really, really niche down. They did almost $1 billion in total cannabis sales last year in Michigan. And like I said, we constantly just niche, like all the way down to infused foods, which is kind of sucky though. Like when you like savory foods and you work in cannabis, because you're like, wait, the industry made $1 billion and all I get is 10 million of that. So that means I need, you know, my students and other people to really put out more savory options for people, because we're paling in comparison to like chocolate and candy.
Don't worry, I'm already on it.
That's what's up. All right.
Been on it quite a while.
So then, like I said, you don't have to do this, but it's really important to give more information than less. So this is where we really just give some more information about Michigan, because now that's our SOM. So it's like investors are really interested in your TAM, just because they want to know, especially if they're not from whatever industry that you're in, what their big market opportunity is. But realistically, like where you actually do business is what people care about. So we took some time in our slides to really expound on Michigan and just show that it's kicking butt. Like, you know, it had a 14% increase in market share in 2020. So pretty dope. You always want to have a competition slide. That'll be in your assignment. You don't have to do the way I'm doing it. You literally, what you have to do in your competition slide is to know your competition. Best practice, never say there isn't any. No investor wants to hear that. That's not true. And even if you came up with the invisible lollipop that doesn't exist or something like that, please know that regular lollipops are still your competition. And the best way to think about competition is, what would a person spend their money on if you didn't exist? So I know a lot of people in cannabis love to fall back on, it doesn't exist, right? I'm new, I'm fresh, I made this up, which may well be true, but believe me, people, you know, got ways to spend their coins. So you got to, really think about, where would people otherwise spend that dollar if you didn't exist, or if it's not you. So in our case, it's other meal kits like the Blue Aprons, the Hello Freshes, other condiment brands, right? Because we're offering a recipe card and an infused ingredient together. But essentially, if somebody just sells cannabis peanut butter, then they are a competitor, because somebody could very well take that and they could make their own something. Also, cannabis chefs are going to be competition, because people could just completely forego cooking for themselves and hire somebody else. And another one I'll just add as an honorable mention is cookbooks. A cookbook would be a viable competition for us, right? Because we offer that component, right? We offer the component of a recipe card with a fully flushed out cannabis recipe with dosing and all of that, but then so do cannabis cookbooks. So that would be something to kind of tip your hat and make a nod to. So you really want to really give some good time into coming up with who your competitors are. Believe me, an investor is more comfortable knowing that you took the time to really dig up all the potentialities than to be like, I don't know, or there aren't any. And what an investor hates doing is just being able to Google whatever you do, and then they can just read you 10 competitors like that after you just told them there weren't any. So don't do that. But like I said, you don't have to go this far, but this is the best practice, is to have a competitor grid or table that kind of shows what points you hit. That's really what you want. That's how you really start it. You think about all the like advantages or value propositions that you're bringing to the market, whatever your market is, and then you compare that to everybody else. So you should have no X's. That's the point. Just the point. You should have no X's in your line, and then you should be able to show that other people don't fulfill every need. You don't want to try to fit into like a box of something. Like, come up with, you should start with the things that you are great at, and then see how other people compare. So traction is pretty self-explanatory, but some people sometimes don't know what to put into it. Traction just means, what have you done so far? So traction, typically, if you are a revenue-based business, like meaning you already been doing this for a while, whatever your business is, and you made money, that's what people want to know. In traction, clearly, like they want to know essentially how much money you made, any big things that may have happened to you in your business's timeline. So like, have you taken on investors? Have you like been featured anywhere? Like, you know, like the top 10, the Cannabis Cup, something like that. They want to know, I'm trying to think, stuff like that is make like big things, essentially like milestones.
It has to be all legitimate things though, correct?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Please don't ever lie or fluff on your pitch deck, because people will find out. Now for you guys' assignment, don't stress about that. Like I mean, it can be fictitious if you want it to, because it's just an assignment.
No, I don't mean in a fictitious realm. I mean like legal business.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. When it
Okay.
comes to cannabis,
Like we're
most
talking about,
investors
yeah.
are very comfortable knowing that you participate in the
Great
legacy
question.
market. Yeah, when
Because
like
you know,
investors want to hear that. Like a
I
lot
don't
of them,
thrive on the table at the moment. You know, my state's not fully recreational.
for sure. So
I've
if
been
you're
in
in
the
an
medical
investment,
program for years. So
yeah, if you were in an investment conversation, like I wouldn't say put that out there to like the general public, obviously, because you don't want to incriminate yourself. But in terms of like your deck, or you're just talking like one-to-one or just in a very small environment with investors, absolutely, you want to reference that you have participated in the legacy market for the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Because
when I was thinking about the deck and like, you know, what the team members do, like I am the team pretty much. Like I don't really anybody, it's me. I'm a solo guy. But I have like, you know, all these relationships that I've built over the last 10 plus years that are still absolutely valid to how I'm able to do what I do.
It just would be in your languaging. So you just want to eloquently state that however long you've been in the legacy market. That is kind of the catch-all terminology that somebody who's a cannabis investor would immediately understand. Okay, you're saying that you participated pre-legalization. That's absolutely fine. If you're pre-revenue, like my company, because we just started last month or in March, then you want to talk about milestones to get to revenue. So if you haven't made any revenue, then they want to learn. They want to know, what have you been doing to get there already? Like you didn't just wake up this morning and come up with an idea and was like, hey, you should give me some money. So big things that people care about: intellectual property, licensing, because we're in cannabis. If you've already gotten your licenses, if you are social equity or anything like that, that goes on your slide. It's going to be really important. We got 4 minutes. Taki, you said you have a question?
Just one. If we, for the pitch deck that we're doing for class, is it all right if we just kind of psychically predict what we think this is going to be? Because obviously I'm not in this industry that deep, you know, like, so is it okay if we just kind of create from the vision as opposed to what's real? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, for sure. As long as you hit the points. Like the whole point is really just of the assignments to show that you know how to make a pitch deck. Your pitch deck doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be real. Like I tell some people, I have students who say,
it doesn't have to be real.
Not necessarily, because I have students who like, they don't want to own a cannabis business. They want to work in the industry. So so then I just say, well, then you still have to do the work. So you can make up McDonald's of cannabis. I really don't care. But as long as all your slides are there and you did do the research, which I give to you. So like the harder research about like analytics and market, literally I gave you for free. So that is easy. The rest you can kind of come up with. But I do encourage the students, if you do want to be an entrepreneur, then do it based on your real concept or your real business. Because then this is what other time are you going to be able to get free feedback and help on the deck outside of this? Because people charge $250 for 30 minutes of their time to do that.
See, that's one of the things.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So that's one of the things that I was thinking about. I'm glad it came up because like reading through the questions in the coursework, like talking about like a company and like, you know, basically, Keena, you said it earlier, like, you know, you're pitching for money, you know. I don't necessarily want to work for anyone. You know what I mean? Like if I take someone's money, I need it to be clear that I don't work for them.
Any savvy investor knows that. And if any investor has what they call investor overreach, where they seem like they want to control your company as opposed to invest in your company, that's not a good investor. And that's somebody whose money you shouldn't take.
Right.
All right. We got 2 minutes. I'm gonna try to run through the rest of this real quick. So team slide literally is just who's on your team. Now, if you're a team of one, that's fine. Use the whole slide to just talk about you, how amazing you are, all your background, all of your experience, legacy, legal, I don't care. Put it on there. This is the time when you just humble brag, okay? And if you do have a team, that's dope. Put their major accomplishments and why they're valuable to your team. And then what's really important to people when you're a team of one or even two is that you have advisors. So they want to, because the way to find an advisor very quickly is essentially, where are your skills gaps? None of us are good at everything, right? So
I have those.
So as long as so think about, that's how you come up with an advisory team. Where are my gaps? Like, am I not a tech person? Am I not a marketing person? Am I not blah, 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 blah? Am I just the chef? So am I not a business person or a math person? if you, whatever those people are that you're not, those are the people who should be your advisors. So just keep that in mind. Projections. We do not have nearly enough time to talk about projections, but and you don't. And
I was going to say, why don't you do this over 2 weeks?
But you don't
like,
need this.
I know you can't get through all this.
Yeah, this is not part of you guys' assignment at all. I'm pretty sure I don't have projections on there. So don't worry about projections. Exit potential, just briefly, means how are you planning to get out of the business? Are you going to sell it to somebody, or are you planning to do an initial public offering on the stock market? If it's neither of those, then you shouldn't be pitching investors, because that's all they want to hear. Last slide is your ask. How much money do you need? You get that number by doing your projections. You figure it, or if you are revenue generating, then that's fine. You just come up with a multiple of that, and then you ask people for money for however much equity. But if you have not made any money yet, and I can do a whole other session on all of these numbers, because that is